Hi guys, welcome back to Study Knits. My name is Allie. I'm a fourth year medical student and I love knitting and talking about knitting on this channel. And today we're talking about things in knitting that annoy me, which is extra fitting right now because I already recorded like 20 minutes of this video and then I stood up to get water and turns out it wasn't even recording. So I'm already a little annoyed to begin with. So I think this is perfect. I love watching people's pet peeve videos on YouTube, like knitting pet peeve videos on YouTube. And I've been collecting a lot of my pet peeves and annoyances in the knitting community. And I will be sharing them here with you guys. I do feel like it's important to say before we get started, these are my knitting opinions and it's not that deep. If you agree with me, that's great. If you don't agree with me, that's great. It's not that deep. Um, Oh, what I'm wearing. I'm so glad you asked. This is my Field Day cardigan by Ozetta, knit with Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in the color Marzipan, and it is one of my favorite knits ever. I love this cardigan. I knit this 4 or 5 years ago. It has some stains on it. It probably needs a bath. One of my favorite transitional pieces, and I feel like it goes with truly almost everything. I love this cardigan. Okay, let's just jump into things that annoy me. Some of this has to do with patterns, designing, some of it has to do with social media use with knitting. Let's just get started. First one, super easy. Errors in paid patterns. It annoys me. It's unprofessional. If I am paying for a pattern that has ostensibly been test knit and tech edited, it should be error free, in my opinion. Like typos, errors with stitch counts, errors in instructions, it should be relatively error free. I do feel like I give more grace to like smaller designers that don't have a lot of resources to support a large test knit or to pay for a very experienced tech editor. And if it's a newer pattern and I may be one of the first like 100 people to look at it, I'm more inclined to I give more grace to that. I feel like I can look and know what someone was trying to say. I can go through and add up how many stitches I think there should be. So it at the end of the day doesn't usually stop me from finishing a project or slow me down or really cause a big change in my project. I just find it annoying and unprofessional. Along those lines about stitch counts, it bothers me when stitch count totals aren't given after working a certain number of increases or decreases or joining two sections together. I really don't like when there are no stitch counts given. I think it's super helpful to have these little checkpoints and make sure that you're on the right track. And I know that I could go through and add up the different, like, how many stitches there should be on the needle after increasing, but I just find it very helpful and really not that hard to include it in the pattern. I mean, I say this as someone that's never designed a pattern, but I don't feel like it can be that hard. I feel like having the checkpoints a lot of times has really helped me to like stay on track with the pattern, double check that I'm like on track with the number of stitches that I need and have. And so I find that very, very helpful. Okay, along those lines, it really annoys me in patterns when you're reading and you're doing repeats of certain rows and it says to repeat, like for example, repeat rows 1 and 2 10 more times. And it includes the instructions as part of the repeats. It doesn't include the instructions as part of the repeats. So I just cannot tell you, I cannot tell you, I can't tell you. I cannot tell you how many times I've been doing increases or decreases and it says repeat 10 more times and I do 10 total increases. And then I'm counting my stitches and I'm like, oh, there's one missing. And I go back and read and I'm like, oh, 10 more times, not 10 total times. There need to be 11 total increases. This one's completely on me. I completely am aware that I'm careless, and perhaps my pet peeve is with myself for being careless and not actually reading the pattern well enough, but I do just love, it makes me so happy when I see that it's the total number of repeats given, not repeats after the instruction round. One of my favorite designers always does do 10 more repeats. And I know when I start her patterns, I know that I need to make sure to get the number of repeats right. And so many times I don't, and I just mess it up. So that annoys me about myself, and that annoys me about the patterns. Another one, this one's rather technical. Something that really annoys me is when in pattern descriptions, when designers are telling you how much yarn you need, they change the unit of how much yarn you need, okay? I'm not talking about like yards to meters. I can so easily plug that into a converter on Google and just go back and forth. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you're going through trying to figure out how much yarn you need for a pattern, and it's only given in number of skeins of suggested yarn. And I have 2 examples to tell you about that I think maybe will make it more clear, okay? The first is the twist loop sweater by Other Loops. This is a sweater that I just started recently, and the suggested yarn is 3 yarns held together. One of them is a cotton merino yarn. It's really, really tiny, and it comes in a cone. It's actually discontinued now, which makes my point a little more relevant because I feel like this only applies if you're using a different yarn than what the pattern suggests. So let me pull it up. It is a wool and cotton yarn, and it comes in, we're gonna talk in grams here, okay? It comes in a 115 gram cone. Big cone. 115 grams, 800 meters, okay? So there's a lot of yarn in this cone. The amount of yarn that you need for all the sizes is only listed in cones. It's only in cones. So for most of the sizes, you need 2 cones of yarn, and then for the largest size, you need 3 cones of yarn. All that tells me is that you need 230 grams of yarn for sizes extra small to, I don't even know, extra large, maybe large. That's all it tells me. If I want to find a similar yarn and replace it, but it comes in like 25 gram quantities, like you're not going to need 230 grams of yarn for an extra small and then also 230 grams of yarn for a large. You're not going to use the exact same amount of yarn for both of those patterns. And I know they have to go through and calculate how many meters, how many yards of yarn that you need per size. So why can't we just have that instead of putting it in the unit of cones? I feel like if you're going through and converting and trying to find a substitute, if you want to make the size extra small, you are going to end up with so much yarn left over. And if you want to make the size large, you might just barely have enough. That's sort of why it bothers me in terms of conversion. I like to know exactly how much yarn I need for a project, and I feel like this just gives a lot of wiggle room when converting to a different yarn. So it really annoys me. And then I have a positive example. Of this just to hammer it home that it can be done. I recently finished the Harlow sweater V-neck by Kadri. I love that sweater. I love this designer. Okay, the suggested yarn comes in a 100 gram hank. So it comes in 100 grams. That is the unit of this yarn. Despite that, the amount of yarn needed for each size, it steadily goes up in 25 and 50 gram increments. So instead, if you were just going based on units, size extra small needs 300 grams of this yarn. It would, if you're going by units, it would be 3 hanks or 3 skeins of Semihipura yarn. And then sizes small, medium, and large would all need 4 skeins of it. Sizes XL and XXL would need 5. You get the idea. Basically, Kadri gives us the exact grams and thus the exact meterage of yarn needed for this sweater. if you were to use the suggested yarn, you would just buy how much you needed. You would buy 400 grams if you were making a size small. But she doesn't just tell us, oh, you need 400 grams of this yarn. Like, no, it's exactly how much. It makes it converting between different types of yarn so much easier. Anyways, this is something that very much annoys me about knitting patterns. And I hope I explained it well enough so that everybody can understand and it doesn't get like too technical. But it's just always bothered me about knitting patterns. Like, just give us the grams or the meterage or the yardage needed, even if it's not rounded exactly to the suggested yarn. I hope that makes sense. And then something that I'm equally as passionate about, but incredibly bratty about, is swatching. Just the fact that it exists, it's a pet peeve of mine. Like, why do I have to swatch? I know why I have to swatch, and I understand that it's so important. And I do swatch some of the time. I do swatch, not all the time. I'm sorry. But why? Why do I have to swatch? I feel like there's some tasks in knitting that like you have to do, or at least you should do, like swatching, weaving in your ends, reading the pattern all the way through, following instructions. I don't want to swatch ever, period. I would rather weave in the ends of 1,000 sweaters than swatch again. And I mean that so deeply and so seriously. I hate swatching. I wish I could just have perfect gauge for everything and didn't have to swatch ever again. It just bothers me. I just feel like always my swatch that I make doesn't match up with the tension of the garment. And then I'm like, well, what was the point of swatching if getting the right gauge and then my gauge on the pattern's off? I don't know. Another thing that I feel like is kind of easy, this has to do with like Instagram. I really don't like when I'm, especially on the Discover feed, honestly just anything, when someone posts a picture of a sweater pattern and they don't tell me what the pattern is and what the yarn is. I sometimes I'm scrolling and I see it and I'm like, oh my God, that sweater is so cute. That's so cute. What pattern is it? And I can't find the pattern. It's not in the hashtags. It's not in the description. It really irks me. Same when I'm on the Discover and I see a yarn that looks so delicious and I click on it and I have no idea what yarn it is. I have no idea what yarn they're using. Depending on how motivated I am to find the answer, I will sometimes go on their page. I'll scroll through. If I don't see it, I'll see if they have their Ravelry linked or something linked. Like, I can go to ends to find out what pattern they're making or what yarn they're using, but sometimes I just don't want to. And I feel like it's a really easy thing to include. I feel like I've included it in because this has annoyed me since I started following people on Instagram that are knitters. It has always annoyed me. So I feel like I've always done it. I don't feel like it's that hard. Yes, it makes your description a little bit more clunky, but I do feel like it's just an easy thing to do. And it just annoys me when I can't figure out what pattern someone is knitting. And then also I've been known to comment like, oh, what pattern is this? What yarn is this? But that is like the max level of curiosity. And I don't really hit that much. I'm just like, if it's meant to be, I'll see it again on YouTube or on someone else's Instagram who lists the pattern in the description. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So be it. Another thing that just kind of annoys me, this is about pattern designing, going back to pattern designing, is when patterns are named after colors. I feel like there's so many names you can use. There's just other descriptions you can use, and it just bothers me when I see patterns named after colors. Not every sweater is going to be that color. And I feel like I really felt that way when I was making my chestnut sweaters by Petite Knit, because chestnut's a color. It's a gorgeous brown color, and I made a black and a dark gray chestnut sweater. And then obviously people make other colors of that sweater, but it just does sort of bother me. I have some other examples of it. There's the chestnut sweater by Petite Knit. The caramel sweater, also by Petite Knit. Feels weird to make like a purple caramel sweater. I don't like that. The cognac sweater by Atelier Caston. Again, cognac's a color. Maybe not as strong as the others, but when I think about cognac, I think about like cognac, the liquor, and the color that it is. It feels weird to have a pink cognac sweater. And then, oh, Petite Knit's also in the process of releasing or has just released the scarlet sweater. I mean, it doesn't affect what color I want to make of it, but it affects like when someone says chestnut sweater, I picture a chestnut color. I picture the certain color more than I picture like the garment of itself. I don't know, I can't quite put into words why it annoys me so much, but it just does annoy me. There's so many other things you could name it after. Why would you pick a color when the sweater is going to be truly every color under the sun? Another thing that gets me, this is more about YouTube, but it's when people on YouTube don't try to pronounce other people's names. This is actually just not even knitting. This is not even like knitting related. It is a lot with knitting, but other things too. When people are running through patterns and they look at it and they say like, oh, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Or they just go by this person, I'll put it on the screen. It's completely different if you can't remember. If you're like, I can't remember who the designer is, I'll put it on the screen. That's completely different. It's when people don't even try to pronounce the names at all. It really irks me. And honestly, same in real life. The worst thing you're going to do is say it wrong. But that's better. It's better to try and say it wrong than not even say it at all. I feel like I've mispronounced people's names on my YouTube and then people correct me in the comments and then I know how to say their name now. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, most of the time people don't get upset. My last name is not a super common last name and people mispronounce it all the time. 95% of the time when somebody says my last name, they say it wrong. And that's fine. You've probably never seen it before and that's fine. And then I'll tell you how to pronounce it. And it's fine. Same on YouTube. Also, I feel like I'm getting heated. Also, I feel like if you are going through and editing your videos, like if you're actually going through and editing, like you can just edit out yourself pronouncing it. I feel like there's so much footage of myself that I've edited out of me looking at a name and like sounding it out and trying to pronounce it. And then I look at the camera and then I say it as best that I can. It's just not that hard to try. That's it. That's the bare minimum, is just try. Anything other than I'm not even going to try to say that name or by name, it's on the screen. I don't know. It just irks me. It's like the basic level of respect you can give to someone. Just try to pronounce their name. And if you're wrong, people will correct you in the comments. And then you'll know how to say it. Like, not that hard. Anyways, sorry. That really got me. Another one is, okay, for reference, I use Ravelry a lot. I use Ravelry to catalog all my projects, for my stashed yarn, to remind myself what I did, modifications that I made, and also to search for patterns. I use the advanced search on Ravelry all the time, so much. It's like my favorite social media. I love it. So it does kind of bother me when people don't use the like tags or on Ravelry correct. Like when pattern designers, people that upload patterns to Ravelry, they don't use the tags or filters correctly, if that makes sense. I think the biggest example I can give is with like when you can go through and you can select what gender you want the pattern to fit. I knit a lot for my fiance and he wears like traditional looking men's clothes. And I feel like before I go any further, I need to like say that clothing is not inherently gendered. You can make whatever you want, you can wear whatever you want, and that's fine. But there are certain like structures and shapes that are more like traditionally feminine, and shapes, structures, designs that are more for males and male presenting. So when going through trying to find patterns for him, I click on like the gender thing, I click on male. Under the like age, age, size, fit. That reminds me of another thing. I'll come back to that later. Age, size, fit. I'll click on male. And it really bothers me when it's a pattern comes up and I click on it and there are no tester photos or no like pattern photos from the designer showing a man or male presenting person wearing it. It makes it hard to shop for patterns for him if I don't know what it would look like on a man or on a male presenting person. It's sort of like misadvertising, in my opinion. If you're going to tag something as being for women, men, if you're going to use that tag on Ravelry, have tester photos or pattern photos to back it up. Along the lines of misusing the tags, I use the age filter a lot on Ravelry because I feel like I plug in things all the time, and a lot of it's baby knits, and baby knits are so cute, but like, I'm not a baby. I don't want a little baby onesie. I want a sweater for me, not for a 1-year-old. And I feel like I'll click on adult, but a lot of people don't tag their patterns as adult. So I feel like I miss out on a lot of patterns. I noticed this when I was making my Only Murders in the Building video, and I was on Ravelry for days. It was a lot of time I spent on Ravelry, and I would try to go through the adult filter, but then I would toggle it off and a lot more patterns would pop up that I wanted, that like actually fit what I was looking for, but just didn't use the adult filter. So that just also annoys me. And then just things like if I'm trying to put in like certain color work and the certain construction that I want, I just feel like a lot of people don't use the tags on Ravelry to their advantage, and it just makes it harder for me to like shop and look around. So that's my annoyance with Ravelry. Last one, again, back to Instagram. And it's something that I was guilty of when I first started knitting. And it's this specific as like hashtag or just phrase that people use, and it's addicted to knitting or knitting addict. Along those lines, knitting is my therapy. I just feel very strongly about this. We'll get into it. I feel like when I first started knitting and I started my, well, not when I first started knitting, when I started my knitting Instagram, like a lot of people, I was trying to get my account out there. So I went to this like hashtag generator, or just looking up like the 30 most popular knitting hashtags. And knitting addict or addicted to knitting was one of those. And I just sort of blindly copy and pasted the hashtags in there. And then I sort of like came to realize, like, I guess sort of this is a little bit more medical because I am a medical student. I have a like professional passion for mental health and addiction. And I've worked with like a lot with like mental health addiction throughout my time in medical school. So it irks me now seeing addicted to knitting. And I'm like, you're not though. You're like really into it, and it probably consumes a lot of your life and a lot of your thoughts, but you're not addicted to knitting. So it really bugs me to see that. It's just, it's not, you're not addicted to knitting. Again, this is like deeply personal that annoys me. I feel like there's definitely other things out there that like I do that annoys people on like a professional level, if that makes sense. Another one, tying it in there, knitting is my therapy. No, knitting is therapeutic. It is cathartic. It's relaxing. It can like stabilize your mental health. It is an incredible hobby to do. It helps me a lot with my mental health, my sanity throughout medical school. I love it. However, it is not therapy. It does not replace a trained, certified, licensed therapist. No matter how great knitting is for you, it does not replace therapy. Knitting is not therapy. So those are just two things in the sort of like social media use that irk me. It's not something that I'm going to like reach out to people about, right? I'm not going to like hound people's Instagrams like, oh, you shouldn't do this, whatever. It's just something that annoys me, and I see it and I think to myself like, oh, not true. Don't love it. And again, like I said, it's something that I was guilty of when I first started knitting. So another thing in there is a lesson for me. Just like read what you're putting on the internet. Like we should all be doing it, obviously, but don't just like blindly copy and paste something. Allie, don't blindly copy and paste something. But yeah, no one is actually addicted to knitting, or knitting is not a replacement for therapy. That is all of the complaining that I have to do today. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know any of your knitting pet peeves if I didn't cover it. If you agree or disagree with me, let me know. Would love to hear. I wish you all happy knitting. I hope it's getting warm where you are if you're in the northern hemisphere, because it's kind of starting to get warm where I am here, and I love it. I'm living for it. So happy knitting. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.